Welcome in Dan Arbess. He's the founder and CEO of Xerion Investments. He's also a member of a very interesting group called the Global Virus Network. You probably haven't heard about it. I hadn't, Dan. Tell us who's involved in it and what it does and how it's working on COVID.
Thank you very much. Hi, Tyler, Kelly. So Global Virus Network was established almost 10 years ago in 2011. It now has a network of 53 scientific institutions in 32 countries who coordinate pandemic preparedness and response with governments and national institutions. It was co-founded by Robert Gallo, who's the co-discoverer of the HIV/AIDS link, and Dr. Christian Burchard of the Pasteur Institute in Paris. And it's a really super intellectual collaboration without a lot of bureaucracy.
I was looking into the website last night, Dan, and just to do a little preliminary research, and I recommend everybody go there. It's very interesting. There's a lot of information there. Let's turn now to the question at hand, and that is the sensible way of reopening the economy, what I call the reopening paradox. That train is leaving the station now. Many states have already reopened. So we know on the one hand that we have to do it. We presume, on the other hand, that doing it entails some unknown but distinct risk of higher transmission of the illness and probably death. So the question really is, what do governments, individuals, probably most importantly, and companies need to do so that we open intelligently and not out of some defiance that we're just impatient with all this business and we want to get back to work? What do we need to do?
That's a huge question, Ty, and exactly the right question. I think we need to back up. We need to agree that the economy does need to reopen, but we don't need to think about things in completely binary terms. It's a question of how to reopen while minimizing total harm, which is both the spread of the virus, but on the other hand, the continuing economic and emotional harm that goes on as we keep the economy closed. So in a broader sense, I think that we need to look at this as a completely new environment that we're in, and we need to apply basic evolutionary biology to everything that we do, which is we need to adapt. We have a problem right now, and that is we don't have the instant point of access testing that we need, or we should have whenever we enter a public environment or an environment with a handful of people. We want to know because the majority of people who have this virus are unaware that they're carrying the virus. So we want to know whether we have it. We can't know that right now. We're uncertain as to whether or not there are specific antibodies that we can develop after we've had the virus. And if there are, how long they last for. And we know that vaccines and cures take time to develop and test adequately. This is the United States of America, Ty. We don't deny reality. We don't blame other people, whether it's China or anyone else, and we don't wait for government bailouts. Those are all maladaptive strategies for the challenge. We're not entitled. We Americans get things done responsibly as individuals and communities. We need to reopen in a way that helps to minimize the total harm. So what does that mean? Well, individually.
Let me just go to the individual here, because I think that's where you're going. We have a public health crisis that predates COVID, and the public health crisis goes to all kinds of coexisting conditions that this virus takes advantage of. Obesity, heart disease, COPD, and other things. Addressing those things is one thing we really need to do in this country. Wouldn't you agree?
Totally agree. I was going to say, we as individuals need to exercise responsibility first and foremost for ourselves. We need to shape up. COVID afflicts the aging body, not just old people. Everyone with lifestyle-driven pre-existing conditions is vulnerable. So we need to address our unhealthy living, our environmental toxicities that cause aging, like cellular and tissue damage, tissue and organ degeneration like cancer and neurodegenerative diseases. As you said, 40% of all adults in this country are obese. Just losing weight and taking care of yourself reduces your own vulnerability. And then you need to turn around and we need to act with situational awareness and responsibility about what we're doing and who we're doing it with to avoid the potential of millions of American deaths before this virus is defeated with herd immunity.
And who we may be putting at risk by our actions that may not be particularly responsible. Two quick final questions. The first one is this. I just asked Paul McCulley a question that you put in my head the other day, and that is, with all of the supply of treasuries that is going to come on the market here over the next year, 2 years, 10 years, how can we be certain that there's going to be demand to sop it up without having to raise interest rates at precisely the same time as the world may be moving away from the dollar as a global currency, global store of value, and also where we're having disinflation? What do you think? He wasn't concerned about it, are you?
Yes, I completely disagree with Paul McCulley. I heard that interview. I think that he's drinking from the Kool-Aid that he's used to drinking from, and it is inconceivable to me that we can continue to pretend that we can just print money and give it away, apart from the fact that if you step back and think about the implications of that, we are entering an era we already have of state capitalism in the United States of America. I mean, I heard Steve Leisman congratulating the Fed for buying corporate bonds, for guaranteeing corporate obligations, for eliminating the potential bankruptcy. What in the world are we talking about? Yes, I completely agree with you, Ty. We have a real concern. And by the way, China is doing business while we argue with them. They're doing business with everybody else in the world, buying their commodities and selling them digital infrastructure, complete with surveillance capabilities, all paid for in yuan. So foreigners that own a big chunk of our outstanding treasuries are going to be decreasing their treasury holdings at exactly the worst time, as we've got $5 trillion of new treasuries being issued this year, 30% of which have less than a 1-year maturity. And when they come up for refinancing, sure, economists say, oh yeah, we should be issuing longer term treasuries. Go ahead and try it. Steve Mnuchin talked about issuing a 30-year treasury earlier this year before this whole crisis took place and got nowhere with it. Rates are going to go higher at the worst possible time for the economy. And I don't care what Paul McCulloch or other experts have to say. I disagree that we can just pretend it's nothing and just throw whatever money we can at it. That is classic maladaptive economic strategy. I'm sorry.